You're scrolling through a dating app at 11 at night, thumb moving on autopilot, and the faces blur into one long, undifferentiated stream. There are thousands of them. 40 million people in your country alone are doing exactly what you're doing right now, in the dark, alone. And the strange, gnawing feeling underneath it, the sense that there are infinite options and somehow none of them are right, is not a personal failing. It is a body running ancient software in a world that no longer matches it. Because for almost the entire span of human existence, a woman did not choose from thousands. She chose from a handful, and that handful determined whether her children lived or died. Tonight we are going to do the brutal arithmetic that shaped female desire, the math that ran for 200,000 years before the first dating app ever lit up a face in the dark. Let's start with the size of the world. For roughly 95% of human history, the long stretch from the emergence of our species until about 12,000 years ago, people lived in mobile foraging bands. The archaeological and ethnographic consensus puts these bands at 25 to 50 people, not 25 to 50 potential partners. 25 to 50 total infants, elders, your own siblings, your own parents. Strip out the children, the old, the closely related, and the already paired, and the number of plausible mates a woman might encounter in a given season collapses to something you could count on one hand. The dating pool was not a pool. It was a puddle. And against that scarcity, the cost of a single reproductive decision was almost unimaginably high. In 2000, the anthropologist Hillard Kaplan and colleagues published a landmark synthesis of forager life history data across multiple societies. The finding that mattered most was this: a human child is staggeringly expensive. Among the Aceh of Paraguay and the Hadza of Tanzania, a child does not produce as many calories as it consumes until somewhere around age 18 to 20. For nearly 2 decades, every child is running a metabolic deficit that someone else has to cover. No other ape carries a dependency that long. This single fact reorganizes everything about what a woman's body was selecting for. She was not selecting a partner for a night. She was selecting a 20-year provisioning contract made in a world with no courts to enforce it. Then in 2007, the economist and biologist team behind a much-cited review of parental investment laid out the asymmetry in stark terms. Eggs are scarce. Sperm is cheap. A woman in the ancestral world could produce, at most, a handful of surviving children across her entire life, perhaps 4 or 5 who reached adulthood. Each one represented years of pregnancy, nursing, and risk that could not be undone or repeated quickly. A man's biological floor was a single encounter. That asymmetry meant the two sexes were playing different games with different stakes, and the more expensive player, the woman, could not afford to be careless. Choosiness was not vanity. Choosiness was survival math. So what precisely was she calculating? The evidence points to a short, ruthless checklist: 6 things. Provisioning. Could he reliably bring back calories, meat, honey, the high-value foods that a nursing mother cannot easily gather while carrying an infant? A skilled hunter was not romantic. He was insurance. Status. A man others deferred to could protect a share of resources for her children. Low status meant your offspring ate last, and in a lean season, eating last meant not eating. Kindness. Cruelty in a partner you cannot escape, in a band you cannot leave, is a death sentence administered slowly. Warmth was not sentimental. It was a safety assessment. Stability. Would he stay? A man who abandoned the contract halfway left a woman provisioning a metabolic deficit alone, and the data on single-provisioned forager children is grim. Health. Visible vigor signaled heritable robustness, and a partner who would survive long enough to finish the 20-year job. Kin. Did his relatives and hers approve? In a band, a mate was never just one person. He came attached to an entire web of obligation that would either feed her children or refuse to. Run those 6 filters against a puddle of 5 candidates, and you understand the architecture of female desire. It was never built to scan thousands. It was built to scrutinize a few deeply, because the cost of one wrong choice was a child in the ground. Then agriculture arrived and slowly took everything the math had depended on. Farming took the mobility that kept bands small and intimate. It took the rough equality, replacing it with hoarded grain and inherited wealth. Property took the woman's own choice and handed it to fathers and brothers arranging marriages. Cities took the kin web that vetted partners on her behalf. Contraception, in the last sliver of time, took the link between sex and the 20-year contract entirely. And the dating app took the final thing, the puddle itself, and replaced it with an ocean. But the body did not get the update. The screening machinery built for 5 candidates is now pointed at 5,000, and it does the only thing it knows how to do. It scrutinizes, it hesitates, it searches for the provisioning and the stability and the kin approval that the ancestral checklist demands, and finds none of those signals legible in a photograph. The exhaustion you feel is not weakness. It is a 20,000-year-old calculator being asked to process a number it was never designed to hold. The response that helps is not to swipe faster. It is to recognize what the machinery actually wants. The research on relationship satisfaction keeps pointing back to the same unglamorous variables the ancestral checklist tracked: reliability, warmth, shared investment, the approval and integration of the people around you. The ancient math did not disappear. It is still running underneath the noise, still asking the same 6 questions, still waiting for answers a screen cannot give it. So put the phone down for a moment and feel it. The same body that is tired tonight is the body that, for 200,000 years, chose well enough that you exist. Every ancestor in your line made the brutal calculation and got it right at least once. The woman by the fire studied 5 faces in the firelight and bet her children on one of them. You study 5,000 and feel nothing. She had almost no options and everything at stake. You have infinite options and a quiet, aching sense that the math no longer adds up. The calculator is the same, only the world it counts has changed.